If you are interested in starting your own podcast, we use Buzzsprout because it is simple and easy to use. Buzzsprout can get your show listed on every major platform while giving you the resources for a great podcast website, audio players that can drop into other websites, detailed analytics to see how people are listening to your podcast, and tools to promote your episodes. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and that is why over 100,000 podcasters are already subscribed to Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Following the link in our episode descriptions lets Buzzsprout know that we sent you. So in return, you will receive a $20 Amazon gift card from Buzzsprout while signing up for a paid plan. Most importantly, every subscription through our link is always appreciated and helps support our show so we can continue delivering the quality content that you guys listen to. That being said, back to the show.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Junkies. I'm Andrew.
This is Joe.
And this time we're coming at you with one more topic. We will probably get back to reading soon, but for the time being, let's hit some more topics. This time, the multiverse. If you're new to comics, maybe you haven't heard of it, but if you watch anything Marvel related lately, like all the films and TV, they are balls deep in the multiverse already. So we're going to, go through, kind of examine that. Didn't really compare notes on this one. We're just kind of coming into it with, our own little research. We'll share that with y'all. See if you learned something here today. But before we start digging into the multiverse and, its origins and stuff like that, how you doing today, Joe?
Pretty good. Getting over a little cold, but in general, ordered another book recently. That should be coming this week. Yeah, something small, but something to, keep my mind on comics. You nice. And Juan have been picking up some pretty good stuff lately, though.
I've been having fun, but Juan's been, on a tear. So, can't speak for him, but major acquisitions.
We'll have to have him on so we can talk about it.
Facts. But I can speak about myself real quick before we dig in. Just been kind of digging through the boxes. Wasn't really supposed to go hard this year. If you've heard, we both had weddings this year. I didn't get the memo. Just bought a bunch of books. Then, I was like, hey, I kind of need a new vehicle. Won't buy any more books. Got the new vehicle anyway. Still bought like 4 books this week. But back to it. Was able to find a Submariner 1, She-Hulk 1, Iron Man and Submariner 1, and what is that, Green Lantern, like volume 1, is it 200 or 201? The first appearance of Kilowog in when it turns to Green Lantern Corps. So, all pretty PC books. I will admit maybe She-Hulk's not the most PC, at least with what they're doing with her lately. Not exactly a cosign on that, but like Burn Era and prior is cool in my book. Plus it's like, if you frame it through like it's a Hulk key, then I'm like, yeah, it's a little bit cooler. But it was a good price, so I figured it wouldn't hurt. But yeah, comic pickups, they don't really stop.
I used to have a copy myself, and you getting one kind of makes me want to get a copy back. But the one thing that bugs me about that cover is that it says like collector's issue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like anything that's advertised as like collectors, is usually not a collect.
Right.
I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
A little gimmicky.
They made too many of them.
Yeah. OG She-Hulk's really cool though.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be up front. It was like $60. So I was just like, in the condition it's in, that's fair enough for me. May as well pick it up. Not too much damage.
Yeah. No, all that's really good stuff though. I guess to get into our episode, though, like the last few episodes, I figured we'd start off with a small definition. So, like multiple universes or multiverse is a set of all universes consisting of space, time, matter, energy, info, physical laws, and universal constants. So, I figured that's a good way to start off the pod, and it can refer to like parallel universes, alternate universes, separate universes, anything bound by physics. And yeah, to your point, it's kind of more popular now than ever.
Yeah. And you know what? I had a little definition myself. It was just a bit more straightforward, I guess. It's just a cosmic construct composed of many fictional universes, which Lord knows they love making a fictional universe nowadays. It's like they grow on trees, am I right? But they've done everything at this point, because it's basically anything that doesn't happen in main continuity. And at this point, what the hell is main continuity anymore? They can't keep that straight. So, what was once an Elseworlds or a multiverse thing now like counts as like the main thing. But there's a bunch of ways to there's a whole lot we could unpack about this. I was about to just start being silly off rip, but I think we might as well talk a little bit about like the background. Because thinking about it, it's anything that's not the main universe. So we'll start off at DC since they're like the progenitors of this. They had it first, not Marvel actually.
Started with
So
the issue you own.
yes. So Joe's referencing Flash 123. That's typically like the book when talking about parallel Earths or, the multiverse. For those who don't know, like the numbering offhand, it's like the classic yellowish orange cover of Barry Allen Flash and Jay Garrick Flash racing towards saving the same person on other sides of a wall. But there are a couple precursors to this at DC Comics. I won't go much in depth, but they kind of started like a little inkling of the idea of what a multiverse was in All-Star Comics 3 back in the Golden Age and also in Wonder Woman 59. But the main credit is Flash 123, which is from the Silver Age. And in that story, that's actually when Barry Allen went to the original Earth of Jay Garrick, who at the time in the main Earth that, Barry Allen's from in the Silver Age, Jay Garrick and, basically that whole continuity was basically a comic book. So meeting the Golden Age Flash was kind of, obviously weird, even for a superhero at that point. But, it got really popular from there. A lot of the fundamental, like there being vibrational frequencies separating universes was introduced back then. That's something that DC's always, stuck to. And then, they expanded upon it further, which I know you're a fan. The JSA and the JLA crossed over in Justice League of America issues 21 and 22. So, not only did they introduce, that kind of crossover and make the multiverse, but they kind of doubled down and committed to it by having both of those iconic teams team up. And that's only further popularized it. I will say, though, I kind of prefaced it a little bit earlier. Things do get messy because if you want to go into like a little bit, not late period, because that would be like now, but, like the 80s, 90s era, the multiverse was like a great thing. But then, editorial had a tough time kind of keeping track of like what counts and what matters. So that's where we got a crisis on Infinite Earths. And as you hear in the title, there's Infinite Earths. That's obviously a multiverse. So obviously they had to toy with how they're going to fix things and, make things make sense, which, as you now know, unless you're new to comics in general, there's been plenty of crises trying to retcon multiple Earths multiple times. But yeah, like in a nutshell, that's like DC for you. But like a lot of DC is like multiverse based in a way. Obviously the main continuity is the main continuity, but there's been plenty of classic stories like Superman Red Sun, there's Gotham by Gaslight. The Earth 2 in general, the Golden Age is like its own Earth. It's not even just a linear continuity. There's all kinds of different stuff. It's kind of like a backbone of DC. They even had the Elseworlds is what they used to be known as. And those were very popular stories for your favorite characters in different situations. Batman in like, whatever, fighting vampires back in the day, blah, 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 Russian Superman. Like, okay. So it's just a way to kind of get out the normal confines of continuity and try and do something interesting, which works like maybe half the time. And then the rest are just kind of like, wow, this guy was bored,
Yeah,
crappy one-offs.
I do think DC does a better job of it than Marvel in general, just because, to your point, it is pretty much a backbone of DC between like Flash, Jay Garrick stuff to Alan Scott, Green Lantern to Crisis on Infinite Earths.
One of your pickups, the Huntress.
Yeah, the Huntress. So the multiverse can either be really good storytelling, whether it's comic books or not, or really bad storytelling, which I'm sure we'll get into. Do you believe in a possibility of a multiverse?
Like in real, like our Earth?
Yeah.
Technically our Earth is in the DC multiverse. That's where Superboy Prime's from. So yeah, mathematically it's gotta be. But then we're talking about like string theory and all this other stuff. And like, I'm not smart enough for that. I just talk about comics, bro. I don't know. I'm sure there is, but the vibrational frequencies, like I can't hear them. I don't know. Must be like a dog whistle.
Call me a flat earther, but I've never really subscribed to the multiverse. I think it's a cool concept, but
there's no point in thinking about it. Like, do we need like a wormhole in space to open up? It'd have to be something with like space time or something. Like, nothing that in our lifetime is probably going to ever matter or make sense.
Speaking of which, my favorite movie of all time is kind of centered around that Donnie Darko.
Mm.
Yeah, so for those who haven't watched, it's about like a decision were to be made outside of fate, like how unstable that universe would be and everything happening for a reason. And then even back in sci-fi class, there's some pretty cool like Ray Bradbury and like other good sci-fi authors that kind of illustrated like the true potentials of like a multiverse. But yeah, when it comes to comics, I feel like more so lately now than ever, they've gotten really lazy.
Yeah, I would say that's something that I feel is especially true at Marvel. Now, I'm not trying to hate because obviously if you've listened, you know we love DC and Marvel. But I feel like especially with like the mainstream and like the movies, like I feel like this whole multiverse thing, philosophically, I feel like the multiverse should be a last ditch effort to either fix things or, you know, to try and be interesting in like a certain manner. When you are like hammering the concept of the multiverse and like multiple projects all at once or like as like an overarching theme, especially like in the movies, it's so early to do the multiverse. I feel like you tap into that when you need to reset or something. Not like, I mean, yeah, they've been doing the movies for like over a decade now, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just it feels a little lazy. Like, oh, we don't know what to do now. All the cool people are getting older, and it's just like one, cast younger, or two, like I don't know, use other characters. Like you already fucking used Shang-Chi and the Eternals and stuff, and so now you're like, oh, we got to rip open the multiverse. We got to do Secret War so Chris Evans can be Captain America. Which, honestly, if that's what happens, good, because those were the only interesting movies. So, you know what I mean? But I mean, even when it comes to comics, it's all the time now. Like, nothing can happen on its Earth. Nothing can matter, kind of. And, you know, it's just a way for, I mean, it kind of ties into like one of our recent episodes where we talked about everybody just dies all the time. So now it's just another way to like, while the main one's dead, they bring in like the Earth 567 Moon Knight. And the only difference is he has a motorcycle and he's Chinese now. It's just like, well, why don't you just keep the original one alive and stop trying to come up with like, you know, different, I don't know. It's like Mad Libs. Like they just do a multiverse now, and then it's just like, oh yeah, this is Ghost Rider, but he drives a mammoth and he's from like 5 million BC. It's like, okay, like that's kind of cool, but like what else are you gonna do with it? It's like they're
No,
just
completely.
it,
Yeah, it's lazy storytelling and like a trope that's been overdone, kind of like the death of, like we talked about in the last episode. I think that actually the movies have done an okay job with the multiverse. Like I didn't really hate the last Spider-Man movie that came out, and then also
eh.
like the Spider-Verse stuff, like those animated movies. I think they do a pretty good job. The Gwen Stacy stuff as Spider-Gwen makes the most sense for Marvel, just how I think Grant Morrison kind of has the best concept of it in DC as far as like current comic book stuff goes, like when they did that multiversity,
That was interesting at least.
yeah, but we were talking about it the other night before we decided on this topic. And to your point, like especially with Spider-Man in comics right now, it's just like, what if Spider-Man was like a pizza box? It's just like
Right.
it's just like
You know?
why? And we don't
Why?
need to explore like those what ifs.
They do Edge of Spider-Verse every year now, basically. And it's just like, we get it, bro. You can make a dozen new Spider-Men each year that are like all the same thing, but fairly different, you know? Like, I don't know. Cause like early on it was cool. And I mean, it still sells and like does fairly well. But have you noticed that when you're talking about the multiverse like being done well, it's only revolved around Spider-Man? Have you considered that like the multiverse around the Doctor Strange multiverse of madness and what is it, Loki and Ant-Man 2? You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, so now we're just everyone's in the multiverse and I don't even know. You know, I'll be forthcoming and I probably will get hate that I honestly deserve if I even listen to it. I'm not watching Loki. I get enough context clues through being on Twitter or whatever you want to call it nowadays. And I swear it does not look interesting. You could swear to me on your life that it's the best thing out right now, and I'm not going to listen to you. Why is Loki even in that situation?
Preach.
You're telling me that the trickster god guy Should be wearing a horned helmet. Hate the new design in comics too, by the way. That's something we need to discuss another time. The corporate synergy between the MCU and which is part of the multiverse, by the way, that exists in the comic universe. It's like fucking Earth 1999999, like a ton of nines. It's annoying, but it's just like, what is that? Why is Loki investigating with a almost like government type agency type deal, like time stuff? Because he was in the Infinity War thing, and like he got the Tesseract, I guess. Which, we're just going down a rabbit hole of who gives a shit. But that's more so my point, is like, why are these the storylines that they're laying to explore? You're telling me there was nothing else you could do with Loki, or just like a different character in general? I think people just want to see like Tom Hiddleston in like dress shirts. I'm pretty sure that's all this is. Because like, what about this is Loki? You know what I mean? I don't see him doing no spells or wearing horn helmets and lying to Thor all the time. Like, what the hell? But you know what? Let's take a step back. I talked about DC. Let me talk a little bit about Marvel and their multiverse, since apparently I hate it. So for those who don't know, the main Earth is Earth 616. That was only established in the Captain Britain stories, which, if I recall correctly, that's like what, the 70s? So technically, it all started, though, with Avengers 85 in 1971. So they're years after DC at this point. Copycats. But that's the birth of the multiverse at Marvel. And if I remember correctly, because this was one of the earlier minor key issues I bought back when I started collecting, I'm pretty sure that's when they crossed over with Justice League analogs, the Squadron Sinister, who also happened to... Shit, did they have a parallel Earth to that one as well? Like, kind of like the Crime Syndicate in Justice League? Now, this is where I get a little fuzzy because I didn't care to fact check. But the Squadron Supreme is basically the good version of the Squadron Sinister. I don't know if they have a change of heart or if they're separate teams. But basically, think the Crime Syndicate in the Justice League. And the Avengers crossed over with them. Whoop-de-doo. And then, obviously, as time went on, it got pretty popular to have, alternate timelines, different universes. I mean, they had a whole Ultimate Universe dedicated to that, which I was too late in the game to go back and read it. And aside from like Ultimate Spider-Man, I've heard not great things about most of it, so I don't care to read it. But then, look at the X-Men alternate timelines up the wazoo. I don't even think they know what the main one is, because it seems like every other year the original X-Men come back to modern times, and then there's the young X-Men, and then there's the future X-Men, and then there's, whatever, Rachel Summers, Cable, Bishop. None of them fit in. They're just all lost in time stories, more or less. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the MCU is part of the comic universe now, which I guess you couldn't notice because it looks like they're taking over the main one. I mean, for real, have you noticed all the costume changes and stuff, and like the characterizations? Awful. I mean, up until Immortal Thor didn't act like Thor, as far as I'm concerned. The costume wise, they got the Kirby costume, regardless. But, Negative Verse, Mojo Verse, Microverse, plenty of verses at Marvel, and they all name them that too, which is hilarious. Like, not one thing doesn't have verse tacked on at the end, which whatever. But, you got Ant-Man's little corner that no one gives a shit about. They got the Negative Verse. There's the Cancer Verse too, I believe, which is just like evil, which cancer's bad. But then there's the Negative Verse, which you would think would also just be evil, which it is. I mean, that's where Annihilus is from, and I'm pretty sure Blastar too. Either way. And then the Mojo Verse, which Mojo, X-Men stuff, blah, blah, blah. It seems like the verses aren't really good over there, I guess. It's never just like, just like, hey, we're on Earth 2, where like it's the 1940s and like things are still kind of cool. It's like, no, everything's just ass and weird. But yeah, I mean, that's my abridged summary of Marvel's multiverse. So more or less, they came into the game later, which at that point, like, it's free real estate. You can do whatever you want with the multiverse. Like, I don't believe that's like a coined idea, but I don't feel like how often do you think of like amongst the great stories that like the alternate timeline ones are great? I mean, if you want to count like the Dark Knight like Returns, because that's old Batman, cool. People like Red Sun, people like Gotham by Gaslight, stuff like that. I mean, those even got animated movies, so they have some contingent of like fans. But like outside of that, I mean, Are you ever pining for an Elseworld story? Like, if you know it's not in continuity, do you go and like willingly pick it up, or do you kind of honestly like ignore it? You're like, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't count. Even if it's interesting, it's probably going to be between 6 and 12 issues of something that doesn't matter. Because I'll be honest with you, I'm prejudiced in that way. Like, if it's a mini series, and two, if I know it like is way out of continuity, chances are I just skip it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Anything like mini series or it's hard. And a lot of the events rely on like the multiverse now. And it's to your point.
Everything's just evil versions of good guys
Yeah.
fighting good guys, and then they have to vanquish them because everyone dies somehow, and then the universe gets reset, and then it's magically just the good guys again. And it's just like, well, why do we tell the story? Because it wasn't interesting and it didn't do anything. Like, I mean, they all shepherd in some type of retcon, but I feel like half the time those suck. Like, I didn't even read the most recent one. What was it, Nightmares or something like that, with a K too? Because of course, dude, because the Dark Knight, the Dark Nightmares, and it's so dumb. I think they literally did like a whole like, oh no, everyone fell asleep and now they're fighting like evil Wonder Woman and stuff. And then what happened of this? Magic's broken now. Oh my god. So it's just like, you're just gonna have to do another crappy retcon nightmare evil multiverse limited series to correct the magic being broken again. And no one wants it. Who wants it? I will find you.
Raise your hand right now.
Better speak up.
That's what I thought.
Oh man, dude, I'm sorry if I'm on one today. It's just like,
no, it's
just tell me stories that matter. Like, the multiverse is like, it should be the cop out. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
The Flash movie. Did you watch that heap of junk? You said you did, didn't you?
Yeah, I did on the plane ride to New York. It was terrible.
What was the reason for inclusion of multiple universes? Even just him going back to talk to like spaz him in the other universe that he messed up. Like, did they have to show us Nicolas Cage fighting the spider? Like, I mean, I get it was just like fan service, I guess, and like CGI Christopher Reeve, but like, what did any of that honestly have to do with the story? Like, I mean, I don't even know. Like,
don't get me
what was
wrong,
this?
like I love that Flash and Green Lantern brought like a sci-fi element, but like yeah, that Flash movie had nothing going for it. More than just the multiverse though. That was just a not good movie, period.
That's true, but then you got to also think that like the whole crutch of that movie was the multiverse, and they didn't do much cool with it. You know, they just had like crappy alternate Supergirl and like old washed up Michael Keaton Batman just get dusted several times, and then they like sloppily rebooted the universe with it. Even like they couldn't even commit to that fully.
At least
Side
it's
note,
a retcon.
it is, but like, you know, they still had Momoa show up, which they shouldn't have even done that. That way there wouldn't be any weird questions going into it. And at the end, when they had Clooney show up, which, oh boy, those movies get too much hate. I will say that. Those are silly ass movies and I enjoy them. But if you're gonna try and, reshuffle the deck and do the multiverse thing, they should have just replaced Ezra Miller in the last scene too. They should have just had a completely different Flash and then just led into maybe new Flash from there. That would have been a cool idea.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's simple. Like, that's low hanging fruit. Like, oh, everyone's a different person now, but they're the same, superhero.
Because I feel like the point of the multiverse is to introduce alternative versions of like characters that we enjoy. So if you would have like introduced the Flash that's going to be in James Gunn's universe moving forward at the end of that
would have got a pop. I mean, they can say that, it's a different universe altogether now when they do that stuff, and, it'll still make sense. But, to try and save that smoldering turd of a movie, just like give us something to be excited about. But regardless, I don't know. I'm all over the place on this multiverse one. I've just been running my jibs about stuff I don't like.
Well, it can go in so many different directions. You know what I mean? It can get pretty convoluted if you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm just a old souled curmudgeon, dude. I just like my, bread and butter. Just give it to me how I've always known it, I guess, like, unless it's like truly groundbreaking, like, keep it.
True. Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to sound so close-minded on a, relatively open-minded comic podcast. Like, we're usually excited about stuff, but like the multiverse has never done it for me outside of like the Silver Age stories where, it was just kind of like a old Earth crossing over with like the new Earth, and, I like the JSA, and if that's where they live and that's how we got to get them to interact with the JLA, cool. But like outside of that, don't care
Yeah,
unless they started getting silly with it. I would
yeah.
appreciate some silly ones, dude. Or like I don't even know if it is silly, but it's just like you want to like try and brainstorm. You want to come up with some cool ideas we can give to like DC or Marvel. They're gonna put us on the spot. What if Wonder Woman was raised on an island of men? She has like a monster truck and like an invisible monster truck instead of a plane. And it'd be pretty sick. What else? If Green Arrow used guns instead of bows and arrows.
He's the Punisher.
No. He's the Green Arrow. You got any other good ones?
Yeah, Batman could shoot guns too.
That's just the golden age.
Just getting people in the calf muscles and stuff.
Batman ain't far from, dude.
Yeah, might as well.
Oh
But
man.
yeah, something that's been around since like Greek philosophy, meant to be diverse storytelling, but it's just gotten pretty, I don't know, boring to read about lately. So sorry to
Yeah,
have a depressing topic today, guys.
I don't know that it was. I mean, if you agree with us, this was a fun one. If you disagree, I'm sorry. I mean, this one was a real stinker then. But you know what? We appreciate all opinions. I mean, just because we say this doesn't mean, we hate everything. I feel like, we might sensationalize it a little bit. I mean, there's good and bad in everything.
Right, like the
But,
characters that
but
we came up with in that one episode could exist in the multiverse, and that should give you guys
yeah.
hope.
Yeah, dude, if they were part of Wildstorm, they'd try to keep cramming them in DC continuity. You know what I'm saying? Dude, how about that alternate universe that they keep trying to make work, but it just does not work? I feel bad for Jim Lee because he loves Wildstorm and all that. It's like the dude's baby. But like every time they want to like merge the two, they don't know what to do. It just doesn't fit because they did it at New 52 and they tried to do it again recently. They let Warren Ellis give it a go. It's like no one can do it. And it's just stuff. I mean, hell,
No
even
one can do it.
no one can do it, bro.
Not the
They put
best
Grifter.
writers.
No one. They put Grifter in everything, and they're like, "Yeah, Grifter's cool." And then it's just like, no one gives a shit. No one. No one. That's why they keep trying every 10 years. But I mean, hell, even look at the milestone stuff. I don't know if that's just like law or what, but like, I don't know. Some of this stuff just doesn't make sense in the grand scheme of other things. Sometimes they keep trying to make it happen. Like, how about even like Angela from Spawn and Image becoming like a Marvel character, like in the Thor stuff?
No,
Like,
thank you.
like, I mean, what doesn't Neil Gaiman like? Didn't he get that from Todd McFarlane? Then he sold it to Marvel. Whatever. Either way, it still doesn't fit, and that's why we don't see her anymore. But I think we've said our piece on the multicare at this point. A lot for y'all to chew on, a lot for y'all to chew us out on if you are so inclined. But yeah, I mean, you got anything you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No, I'm good.
Cool. And with that, we'll go into our usual pleasantries at CBJ Pod on Instagram. That's the main hub. Hit us up there. Comment, likes, slide in the DMs. Hit us up. Rate, review, subscribe. I mean, that's a old ask that everyone who does anything on the internet says. I won't beg though, but it does help feed the algorithm, and I don't understand the algorithm, but it helps push us out to new fans so we can have more junkies surround us and have more fun. So that's the only reason we ask. Otherwise, we know you rock with us. Next time, what do we want to do next time? I think it's been a little bit since we read something. Do we want to try and read for some folks, or do we want to try and hit the old well on a topic, my friend?
If I don't read something soon, I might forget how to read, so we should probably do that.
Yeah, good thing these books got pictures because I'm already there. So, with that, I mean, I don't think we have anything directly lined up. So, I mean, unless we want to go back and read some bot manga, we can go ahead and we'll brainstorm something else. And I'm sure you'll get the heads up on our Instagram if you follow us there on what exactly it is we're reading before you hear about it.
All right, guys. Appreciate you listening.
Thank you.